Chanini sat huddled in the middle of the noisy market, her small body shaking with sobs as tears ran down her cheeks. For days, she had stayed there, unseen and ignored by the crowds of people busy with their daily work. To them, she was just another street kid, a bother to be avoided at all costs. The rules of the Afrid planet were strict, especially for those who were without a home or family. Any child found alone on the streets could be taken by the police, bound for a life of tough work in the king's mines. But for Chanini, there seemed to be no way out of her situation. The market women sent her away, their voices stern and strict as they went about their trade. The guards walked the area, their eyes cold and unfeeling as they told her to move on, giving no care for her trouble. Alone and scared, Chanini felt as though she had no one to help her. She had no family to guard her, no home to return to. She was just another lost child in a sea of uncaring faces, trying to make it in a world that seemed eager to break her. But then, in the mess of the market, a ray of hope appeared, a person unlike any Chanini had ever seen. It was a human diplomat, his presence strong and noble as he walked through the crowd with a goal. The diplomat looked at Chanini, and for a moment their eyes met, a quiet exchange that meant a lot. With a smile, the diplomat came over to her, his voice soft as he asked for her name. Chanini, surprised by his kindness, paused before answering, her voice just a whisper. To her surprise, the diplomat didn't walk away or ignore her like so many others had. Instead, he took out a small coin from his pocket and offered to buy her lunch, a simple act of kindness that made Chanini cry. As the diplomat talked to the guards, speaking up for Chanini, she couldn't help but feel a hint of hope growing within her. Maybe there was a chance for her to avoid the grim future in the king's mines, to find a new home and a family who would love and care for her as their own. But the guards were not swayed by the diplomat's words, their loyalty to the tough laws of HFY solid. They told him that if Chanini spent another week on the streets, she would be taken by force, bound for a life of harsh work in the mines. Faced with this harsh reality, the diplomat made a decision that would change Chanini's life forever. With unwavering resolve, he declared his intention to adopt her, to provide her with a home and a family where she would be loved and cared for. And as Chanini looked up at the diplomat with tear-filled eyes, she knew that she had found her guardian angel, the one who had rescued her from the darkness and offered her a chance at a brighter future. With his help, she would no longer be alone in the world. As the off-road mobile rumbled along the dusty streets of the city, Chanini sat huddled in the back seat, her eyes fixed on the passing scenery. The human diplomat, seated beside her, leaned forward with a compassionate expression, his voice gentle as he asked her to share her story. Chanini hesitated for a moment, her small hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. She was just a child, barely 8 years old, yet she had already experienced more hardship and heartache than most adults could imagine. With a deep breath, Chanini began to speak, her voice soft and tremulous, as she recounted the events that had led her to the market, the place where she had been abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect and care for her. My parents, they came from another planet, Chanini began, her words hesitant as she struggled to find the right way to express herself. They were refugees, fleeing from a war-torn world in search of a better life. But when we arrived here on Afrod, things were difficult. She paused, her gaze dropping to her hands as she traced the outline of her fingers against the fabric of her dress. We couldn't afford to pay the rent, and the landlord, he kicked us out of our home. Chanini's voice wavered with emotion as she spoke, her memories of that time still raw and painful. My mother, she told me that everything would be okay, that she would find a way to take care of me, but then she took me to the market, under the pretense of buying me something to cheer me up, and then she left me there. Tears welled up in Chanini's eyes as she spoke, the pain of her abandonment still fresh in her mind. I waited for her, searching every corner of the market, hoping that she would come back for me. But she never did, and I realized that I had been abandoned. Alone and frightened, Chanini had been forced to fend for herself in the harsh and unforgiving streets of the city. She scavenged for food in bins and drank from polluted waters, her stomach a constant knot of hunger and fear. But amidst the despair, there had been a glimmer of hope, a ray of light in the darkness that surrounded her. It was the human diplomat who had seen her plight and reached out a helping hand, offering her kindness and compassion in a world that had shown her nothing but cruelty. And as Cennini looked up at the diplomat with tear-filled eyes, she knew that she had found a friend, a guardian who would protect her and care for her as if she were his own. With his help, she had escaped the clutches of despair and embarked on a journey towards a brighter future. As Cennini finished recounting her heartbreaking story, tears glistening in her eyes, the human diplomat reached out a comforting hand, his expression filled with sympathy and understanding. He gently wiped away her tears, offering her a reassuring smile as he listened to her question. "Why are you here?" Cennini asked, her voice quavering with emotion. "You're the only one who looks like you don't belong here. What brings you to Afrod?" The human diplomat sighed softly, his gaze distant as he began to share his own story with Cennini. He spoke of his role as a diplomat, appointed by the leaders of Earth to negotiate peace and forge alliances across the galaxy. It was a position of great responsibility, one that he had taken on willingly in the hopes of making a difference in the universe. For years, I have traveled from planet to planet, seeking to bridge the divides between different civilizations and foster understanding among the stars, the diplomat explained, his voice tinged with a hint of nostalgia. It's a task that I take great pride in, and one that I am honored to undertake. He went on to speak of his encounters with various species and cultures, each one offering its own unique challenges and opportunities. And it was during his travels that he had come across Cennini, a chance meeting that would change both of their lives forever. "When I first saw you in the market, alone and afraid, my heart went out to you," the diplomat continued, his eyes meeting Cennini's with a warmth and sincerity that she had never experienced before. "I knew that I couldn't leave you there, to fend for yourself in a world that can be so cruel and unforgiving." With a sense of determination, the diplomat made a promise to Cennini, a promise to do whatever it took to ensure her safety and well-being, to protect her from the hardships that had befallen her on Afrod. He vowed to take her to Earth, his home planet, where she would be safe and where she would have the opportunity to receive an education and build a better future for herself. Cennini's eyes widened with hope and gratitude as she listened to the diplomat's words, a sense of relief washing over her. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that there was a way out of the darkness that had consumed her life, a way to escape the wars and hardships of Afrod and find a place where she truly belonged. With a grateful smile, Cennini reached out and took the diplomat's hand, her fingers intertwining with his as she whispered her thanks. And as they continued on their journey, bound together by a shared sense of hope and determination, Cennini knew that she had found not only a guardian, but a friend who would stand by her side no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Cennini and the human diplomat made their way to the registry to begin the adoption process, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Cennini's heart raced with excitement as she imagined a future filled with love and security, while the diplomat's mind buzzed with plans for their journey to Earth. Before they entered the registry, the diplomat paused, his gaze thoughtful as he considered Cennini's appearance. With a smile, he led her to a nearby dressing room, where he selected a beautiful dress for her to wear. Cennini's eyes widened with delight as she slipped into the elegant garment, her fingers tracing the delicate fabric with wonder. But the surprises didn't end there. The diplomat then took Cennini to a nearby spa, where she was pampered and cared for like royalty. Her hair was washed and styled, her skin bathed in luxurious oils and lotions. By the time she emerged from the spa, she looked like a completely different child, a vision of grace and beauty that took the diplomat's breath away. Hand in hand, they made their way to the registry, Cennini's steps light and confident as she walked beside her newfound guardian. But as they entered the building, their excitement quickly turned to frustration. The staff at the registry greeted them with cold indifference, their eyes glancing over Cennini as if she were nothing more than a nuisance to be dealt with. When the diplomat explained their intention to adopt Cennini, they exchanged knowing glances and directed them to the office of the director. Hours passed as they waited anxiously outside the director's office, the diplomat's patience wearing thin with each passing minute. Finally, they were granted an audience with the director, a stern-faced official who wasted no time in getting down to business. The director apologized for the delay and explained that adoption processes on Afrid were notoriously slow and complex. He assured them that their application would be processed in due time, but the diplomat's expression darkened at the news. "We can't wait for years," he insisted, his voice tinged with frustration. "We need to leave the planet as soon as possible. Is there no way to expedite the process?" The director shook his head, his expression regretful. "I'm afraid not. The law is clear, and we must follow it to the letter. Adoption is a serious matter, and we cannot rush such decisions." Frustration boiled within the diplomat as he realized the gravity of the situation. He couldn't leave Cennini behind to face an uncertain fate in the mines, but he also couldn't afford to wait for years for the adoption to be finalized. With a heavy heart, he thanked the director for his time and led Cennini out of the registry, his mind racing with possibilities. They needed a plan, a way to ensure Cennini's safety and happiness, no matter the cost. And as they walked through the bustling streets of the city, the diplomat vowed to do whatever it took to protect his newfound daughter from harm. As Cennini walked alongside the human diplomat, her heart heavy with guilt and uncertainty, she couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness that gnawed at her soul. She had never asked to be a burden, to be thrust into a world of danger and uncertainty, and yet here she was, a mere pawn in a game she didn't understand. "I'm sorry," she murmured softly, her voice barely audible above the din of the city streets. "I didn't mean to cause so much trouble." The diplomat's response was swift and stern, his gaze locking with hers as he spoke. "You are not a burden, Cennini," he insisted, his voice filled with conviction. "You are a blessing, a precious gift that I am grateful to have in my life." "Never doubt that." His words brought a glimmer of hope to Cennini's heart, a flicker of light in the darkness that surrounded her. She nodded silently, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips as she took comfort in his reassurance. But their moment of respite was short-lived, for they soon found themselves confronted by an army patrol vehicle, its occupants demanding documentation for Cennini's presence at the diplomat's side. The tension in the air was palpable as the soldiers eyed them suspiciously, their weapons at the ready. The diplomat's anger flared at their insistence, his voice ringing out with authority as he refused to relinquish Cennini into their custody. For a moment, it seemed as though violence would erupt on the crowded street, but then I intervened, displaying the crest of my master's diplomat status. Instantly, the soldiers' demeanor changed, their hostility melting away as they bowed respectfully before us. It was a stark reminder of the power and influence the diplomats held, even in the most precarious of situations. But, despite our temporary reprieve, the diplomat knew that his authority had its limits. The laws of Afrod were strict and uncompromising, and even he could only do so much to bend them to his will. Undeterred, he began to reach out to his contacts across Afrod, seeking assistance from anyone who might be able to help them navigate the labyrinthine bureaucracy of the planet's legal system. But one by one, his efforts were met with resistance, as even the most powerful individuals hesitated to challenge the entrenched laws that governed their society. It was only after countless calls and appeals that a breakthrough finally came. A meeting with one of the top-ranking officers on Afrid, a man whose influence extended far beyond the confines of the city streets. With renewed hope and determination, the diplomat and Cennini set out to meet with the officer, their hearts filled with anticipation as they dared to believe that their struggles might soon come to an end. But little did they know that their journey was far from over, and that the true test of their strength and resilience was yet to come. As we stepped into the office of the Minister of Commerce, a sense of apprehension hung in the air. The diplomat and I exchanged a nervous glance, uncertain of what to expect from our meeting with the high-ranking official. The minister, a formidable woman with steely eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, wasted no time in getting down to business. She greeted us with a polite nod, her voice firm as she addressed the matter at hand. "It is commendable that you seek to provide a better life for this child," she began, her tone measured. "But I must be honest with you. Appealing the law is not an option. The regulations regarding adoption on Afrod are strict and inflexible." Her words sent a chill down my spine, and I felt a surge of despair wash over me. Could it be that our efforts to help Chanini were in vain? Were we doomed to watch helplessly as she fell victim to the harsh realities of life on Afrod? But before I could voice my concerns, the minister continued, her expression softening slightly as she offered us a glimmer of hope. "However," she said, "I am willing to grant you some concessions. You may take the child with you when you leave Afroj, but it will not be as an adopted daughter. Instead, she will be treated as cargo, a commodity to be smuggled out of the country." The implications of her offer hit me like a punch to the gut. While it meant that we could potentially save Shanini from a life of hardship and suffering, it also meant that she would have no legal protection or status once we left Afrod's borders. She would be at the mercy of whatever dangers awaited us on our journey to Earth. I quickly relayed this information to the diplomat, my voice filled with concern. "Master, we may be able to leave Afroj with Chanini, but without proper documentation, she will be vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. Other planets may see her as nothing more than a commodity to be traded or sold." The diplomat's brow furrowed with worry as he contemplated the minister's offer. It was clear that he was torn between his desire to protect Chanini and the knowledge that our journey would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But in the end, he knew that there was no other choice. With a heavy heart, he turned to the minister and nodded solemnly. "We accept your offer," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. "But know that we will do everything in our power to ensure Chanini's safety and well-being. She may not have the legal status of an adopted child, but she will always be a cherished member of our family." The minister nodded in understanding, her expression sympathetic. "I understand your concerns," she said, "and I admire your dedication to this child. May fortune smile upon you in your journey, and may you find the peace and security you seek for Chanini." With that, our meeting came to an end, and we left the minister's office with heavy hearts and determined spirits. Our path forward was fraught with peril, but we would face it together as a family united by love and a shared sense of purpose. As we embarked on our journey, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Chanini clung to my hand, her eyes wide with apprehension, as we boarded the cargo ship bound for Ago. The plan was risky, but it was our only hope of escaping the clutches of Afrod's suppressive laws. As the cargo ship lifted off from the surface of Afrod, my heart pounded with fear. Every creak and groan of the ship filled me with dread, and I couldn't shake the feeling that at any moment, we would be discovered and our hopes dashed. But the human diplomat remained steadfast in his confidence. He assured us that the Minister of Commerce had made all the necessary arrangements to ensure our safe passage, and I chose to place my trust in his judgment. The journey was a tense and nerve-wracking one, every passing moment fraught with uncertainty. We kept to ourselves, avoiding contact with the crew of the cargo ship as much as possible. Chanini remained close by my side, her small hand clutching mine tightly, as if seeking reassurance. Despite our fears, the cargo ship made its way through space without incident. Every stop point was navigated with precision, and we breathed a sigh of relief each time we passed through without arousing suspicion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached our destination, the diplomatic traveling ship that would take us the rest of the way home. As we boarded the ship, a sense of relief washed over me, knowing that we were one step closer to safety. The human diplomat expressed his gratitude to the crew of the diplomatic ship, thanking them for their assistance in our journey. With a sense of anticipation, we settled in for the next leg of our voyage, eager to put Afrod's oppressive laws behind us. But our journey was far from over. As we traveled through the vast expanse of space, we knew that we would soon need to make a stop at a planet to refuel. It was a necessary but risky endeavor, one that could potentially expose us to danger once again. But we were determined to see Chanini safely to her new home on Earth, and we would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination. Together, we would navigate the dangers of the cosmos and forge a new future for ourselves. A future filled with hope, love, and the promise of a better tomorrow. As our ship descended towards Ago planet, a sense of trepidation settled over us. We knew that this stop was necessary to refuel our ship, but we also understood the risks involved. Ago planet was known for its strict regulations and ruthless enforcement of laws, particularly when it came to contraband and unauthorized passengers. As we landed on the surface of Ago, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gripped me. We had to act quickly to refuel our ship and get out before we attracted any unwanted attention. But little did we know, our plans were about to be derailed in the most unexpected way. The process of refueling our ship was more thorough than we had anticipated. Despite paying a substantial fee for the fuel, the authorities insisted on conducting a search of our vessel for any contraband or stowaways. We had no choice but to comply, hoping that our careful concealment of Chanini would keep her hidden from prying eyes. But the authorities on Ago planet were relentless in their search. They combed through every inch of our ship with meticulous precision, leaving no corner unchecked. And to our horror, they eventually discovered Chanini hiding among our cargo. Their reaction was swift and merciless. They seized Chanini with a gleam of greed in their eyes, already envisioning the profits they could make from exploiting her as a child laborer. The human diplomat protested vehemently, but his pleas fell on deaf ears as the authorities grew increasingly aggressive. Chanini's cries pierced the air, her small voice pleading for mercy as she was forcibly dragged away from us. My heart ached with helplessness, knowing that we were powerless to protect her from the cruel fate that awaited her on Ago planet. Desperate to save Chanini from her grim fate, the human diplomat demanded to speak with the leader of the authorities. Though the chances of success seemed slim, he refused to give up without a fight. With a heavy heart, we were escorted to the presence of the planet's ruler, hoping against hope that he would have the compassion to intervene on Chanini's behalf. As we were ushered through the rocky paths towards the leader's stronghold, I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that hung over us like a dark cloud. The fate of Chanini hung in the balance, and the outcome of our meeting with the planet's ruler would determine her future and ours. As we stood before the imposing figure of the general, the gravity of our situation weighed heavily upon us. My master, the human diplomat, had underestimated the ruthlessness of Ago's authorities, and now we found ourselves at the mercy of their iron-fisted rule. The general, a stern and authoritative man, listened to our plea with a cold detachment that sent shivers down my spine. He demanded proof that Chanini belonged to us, and when we admitted that we had no documentation to support our claim, his verdict was swift and unforgiving. Chanini now belonged to Ago. Desperation gnawed at my master's heart as he pleaded with the general to reconsider. He vowed to do anything, to make any sacrifice necessary, if only he could reclaim Chanini and ensure her safety. But the general was unmoved by his impassioned pleas, his resolve unyielding in the face of our desperation. However, in a surprising turn of events, the general proposed a deal that could potentially alter the course of our fate. He offered my master a chance to win back Chanini through combat, a trial by combat against Ago's most formidable soldier. If my master emerged victorious, we would be granted safe passage off the planet with Chanini in tow. But if he failed, we would forfeit not only Chanini, but also my own freedom. It was a perilous gamble, fraught with uncertainty and danger. Yet, faced with the prospect of losing Chanini forever, my master had no choice but to accept the general's challenge. With a determined resolve, he steeled himself for the battle that would decide the fate of us all. As my master, the human diplomat, descended into the pit, my heart clenched with apprehension. I pleaded with him to reconsider, to abandon this perilous venture, but he reassured me with a calm confidence that belied the danger that lay ahead. With unwavering resolve, he stepped forward to face whatever awaited him in the depths below. The soldiers surrounding us wore smug smiles, their anticipation palpable as they eagerly awaited the spectacle about to unfold. I couldn't shake the sinking feeling in my chest as I watched my master disappear into the darkness, knowing that he was walking into the jaws of peril. Minutes stretched into eternity as we waited in anxious silence, the only sound the distant rumbling of the cage below. Then, with a deafening roar that echoed through the chamber, the creature emerged, a dragon, its massive form casting a shadow over the pit. I recoiled in horror, my instincts screaming at me to flee, to abandon all hope of victory. But my master remained steadfast, his expression resolute as he faced the monstrous beast before him. With a calm demeanor that belied the chaos of the moment, he began to move with purpose, circling the dragon with calculated precision. The dragon, sensing my master's presence, turned its gaze upon him with a predatory gleam in its eyes. I held my breath, fearing the worst as the creature lunged forward, its massive jaws snapping shut inches from my master's face. But, to my astonishment, my master did not flinch. Instead, he moved with a fluid grace, evading the dragon's attacks with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. With each passing moment, it became increasingly clear that my master was not merely a diplomat, but a warrior in his own right, his movements honed through years of training and discipline. Then, in a display of sheer audacity, my master leaped on the dragon's back, his hands finding purchase on its scales as he wrestled for control. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as man and beast engaged in a silent struggle for dominance. And then, to my utter disbelief, the dragon yielded. Its ferocious demeanor melted away, replaced by a docile compliance as my master asserted his dominance over the mighty creature. With a gesture of command, he urged the dragon to carry him out of the pit, its massive wings beating against the stale air as it obeyed his every command. The soldiers, stunned into silence by the spectacle before them, could only watch in awe as my master emerged victorious, Shanini held safely in his arms. With a sense of triumph that bordered on disbelief, we made our way out of the pit, leaving the soldiers to ponder the extraordinary feat they had just witnessed. As we emerged into the light of day, I looked upon my master with newfound respect and admiration. He may have appeared unassuming, but beneath his diplomatic facade lay a strength and courage beyond measure, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. As we bid farewell to Ago, the soldiers who had once been our adversaries became our allies, their demeanor transformed by the display of strength and determination they had witnessed from the human diplomat. With their assistance, navigating the complexities of departure was made infinitely easier, and we departed the planet with gratitude in our hearts. The insignia bestowed upon us by the Ago military served as both a token of their goodwill and a symbol of our newfound alliance. With it in our possession, we traversed the vast expanse of space with ease, encountering no obstacles or hindrances along the way. The journey back to Earth was a voyage filled with anticipation and reflection. Shanini, her eyes bright with wonder, eagerly absorbed every detail of the cosmos as we traveled through the stars. The human diplomat, ever vigilant, ensured that we faced no dangers on our journey, his diplomatic prowess proving invaluable in securing our safe passage. As we approached Earth, the sight of its lush, green landscapes and vibrant hues filled us with a sense of awe and belonging. It was a homecoming unlike any other, a return to the embrace of a planet that held the promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. Upon our arrival, Shanini was enrolled in a prestigious school, her thirst for knowledge and adventure driving her forward into the realms of academia. The human diplomat, his commitment unwavering, spared no expense in ensuring that she received the education and care she deserved, laying the foundation for a bright and promising future. As for myself, I was honored to be appointed as the human diplomat's personal assistant, a role that afforded me the opportunity to continue learning and growing under his guidance. Together, we forged a bond that transcended mere diplomacy, united by our shared experiences and unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. In the end, our journey from Ago to Earth served as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of compassion. to overcome even the greatest of challenges. Though our paths may have been fraught with danger and uncertainty, we emerged stronger and more united than ever before, ready to embrace the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. And as we stood together on the precipice of a new beginning, I knew that no matter what trials awaited us, we would face them together, united in our shared humanity.